Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, lax rats alike, welcome back to another episode of the Crease Dive. Today is Memorial Day Monday, and the Maryland Terrapins are your 2022 national champions of college lacrosse. I am Jordy from Barstool. With me, as always, we've got Brother Dukes on the mic. Dukes, the Terps, they cap off the undefeated season. They cement themselves as one of the most dominant teams in the history of the game. How are you feeling today as another college lacrosse season has come to an end?
Feel good for Maryland and the state of Maryland, the Terp Nation, winning their first Mickey Mouse title. They didn't beat enough ACC schools, in my opinion, for this title to count. So, yeah, I mean, it's a title nonetheless, but there's definitely going to be an asterisk next to it in the history book, some are saying.
Well, I mean, they beat the ACC co-champion and like beat the fucking piss out of them twice. So I think that beating Virginia twice by a combined, what was that, 11 goals the first go around, and then a comfortable not. So by a combined 20 goals, and then they also beat Notre Dame earlier in the season, and then they beat Syracuse. So, I mean, all right. So they didn't play UNC. So because they didn't play Chris Gray, Colin Krieg, and like 7 other guys, yeah, I guess.
I didn't say it was a Mickey Mouse title, but I'm saying people are calling it a Mickey Mouse title. No, but good for Maryland. I'm happy that they won. I was rooting for them just to like finish off the perfect season. I'm glad they're like not one of those teams that are like the what if. I mean, last year they're undefeated going into the title game. Obviously, Virginia was a tall task last year, but yeah, it's I'm happy that they just got it done and it wasn't a what if situation.
I am. So I wrote something about this in a blog I wrote earlier today. I'm curious what other people think. I think, all right. So let's say Cornell goes out there and they decide that they're not going to shoot 15 times stick side high on Logan McNaney, and they actually put the ball in the back of the net and they complete the comeback and they slay the dragon, right? Like, let's say they pull off one of the greatest upsets that we've ever seen in college lacrosse, and they knock off Maryland in this final game. Would that have been incredibly entertaining for today? Absolutely. But I think like as time would go on, I feel like we would just forget about the 2022 season as a whole, because it's like, yeah, like the best team ever didn't win the national championship. We would forget it. Like we would remember that game, sure, a little bit, but like now, because Maryland, they were able to cap this off. They were able to win throughout the whole season in such dominant fashion, become the first undefeated national champ since that 2006 Virginia team. Like, I think now, like we have something that we'll always remember this 2022, like the same way. Like when you look back on 2006, you think about that Virginia team. When you look back on 2005, you think about that Hopkins team. Like now, 20 years from now, when you look back on 2022, like you're not going to remember anything besides that greatest Maryland team of all time.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of said this earlier in the season, or maybe right before the tournament, where like, there's no, like I compared it, there's no like big recruiting name that like is like a Brennan O'Neill situation. You know what I'm saying? Like
right.
Virginia has a lot of the names. Duke has a lot of these names that stand out. So like, yeah, if Maryland did, like I said, the most talented, best team I've ever seen in my lifetime, but they didn't ever have a capsulating a big name.
Capsulating. Yeah. Well, I think maybe you're thinking of like a captivating.
Yeah. Captivating name. So yeah,
which is crazy because like
they have a two-time finalist.
Well, he's going to be a two-time winner,
yeah,
and a first. Like Logan Wisnauskas is like the quietest lacrosse superstar of like he had 100 points this season. He was a first overall pick in the PLL draft. He's going to win the Tewaaraton, and he just won a national championship. And like his name still just doesn't have quite the buzz. Like maybe
it's the factor that Clark said today during the game is you could take him off the team and they're still probably going to win.
Yeah.
Like that. It's unfortunate, but it's kind of a reality. But the way that he was able to develop his game, I think he like started off at Syracuse his freshman year, leaves, goes home to Maryland, and he came in basically just a shooter, a big lefty shooter who could absolutely let it sting. But he dished out like 40 plus assists this year. his game grew like an insurmountable amount. So credit to him. I mean, I don't know. Maryland, I feel like we said people said it in 17. 17, they finally got over the hump with Tillman. Now it's like they got number 2 under his belt. It's like they're a scary, scary program for until that man hangs it up.
Yeah. I mean, the narrative I feel like for Maryland was like, obviously like 2017 happened and that's awesome. Shout out Rambo and Heacock and all those studs. But like the narrative was like, they were always going to get to the Final Four and then just never win on that Monday. Like that was just their MO for so many years in a row. And like, I mean, it's kind of, I guess it's like, what do you think? Like when you think about LeBron, like when I think about LeBron, I think about losing the finals.
When I think about LeBron, I think about Kevin Durant absolutely just fucking up the NBA for so many years.
Like, okay, but still, I just a guy who has just been to so many, like who has lost the most finals out of anybody.
I think of Maryland as Michigan State. Michigan State in college basketball, I think, has been to more Final Fours, and they only have one championship, like in the past 40 years or something.
Right. So like that was Maryland.
Yeah.
Up until like I think that this season as a whole, and then capping it off with the national championship today, was enough to cancel out that narrative, and now they're just a steady wagon.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. I also think that, like, to some extent with the transfer portal, I was thinking about this today. So you're an Ivy League kid, you're an ACC kid, right? Like if you're an ACC kid, you get your Duke degree, UNC degree, and then Georgetown calling up. They're like, hey, you can actually get like your master's program here. We're not the ACC, but you already got your ACC playing days behind you. Come play in the Big East, compete with Denver for basically a Big East title, walk in with like a top 5 seed into the NCAA tournament. That's pretty appealing. And then you got Maryland. It's like, we're not in the ACC, but like you can come back home to Maryland, because you might want to recruit some Maryland kids, or like you want to play with your Philly kids. Come to Maryland, your ACC days, your Ivy Leagues, you already got those degrees. Come finish out at Maryland and like win a national championship. So like those are two of the most enticing schools for a reason to grab these Ivy League or ACC kids.
Yeah, and then one of them you're actually going to win tournament games,
for
and
sure.
The other one not really.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're basically saying, like, when you're picking between transfer portal, you should really only look at Georgetown or Maryland and be like, do you care more about your like degree and maybe make a quarterfinal or like break through to the Final Four, like win a fucking championship?
It's like, do you want to be at the beach on Memorial Day weekend, or do you want to be like on a lacrosse field? And then just make your call. I mean, hey, like some people
like the beach.
Yeah, some people like the beach. No, but I'm like this game today. I think that it wasn't probably the cleanest way for Maryland to go out. Obviously, that fourth quarter was a bit of a scare. I think everyone saw them finally hit that wall. I mean, they had a long season of just kicking everybody's ass. Then they played that late game on Saturday. So everything really starting to catch up to them physically. And I mean, credit to Cornell for keeping this one tight the whole game. Like, that when Maryland scored to make it 9-3, like there was like 27 minutes left in the game. And I think right then and there I tweeted ball game. Cause like, I was like that. I mean, this team, like they're finally getting all the skip passes from Kyle Long to DeMayo were there the whole time. Was Nauskas with a nasty low to high stick to that top right corner. Like it looked like they were ready to just step on Cornell's throats and then like not let up the rest of the way. Then they hit their wall and Cornell was able to go on a nice little run. But I mean, they just never at no point did Cornell fully take every single chance that Maryland was throwing their way to say, here, you guys can have the game if you will like it.
Yeah. And I don't know. I kind of thought that the game sucked. Like, really wasn't like a fun game to watch.
It was pretty sloppy the whole time. A lot of turnovers. I don't know if that's necessarily, like Jake would always bring this up. Like, was it he'll always bring it up on the other side around. Like, was it good offense or was it just bad defense? I don't know if this was great defense or if it was just bad offense. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of turnovers. Was a lot of that probably due to the defenseman? Sure. But also, was it just like sloppy, like unforced turnovers? Yeah, a lot of that as well.
Yeah, and it almost seemed like the Maryland passing lanes that are usually there weren't there. I mean, Kyle Long had exceptional vision today. I think he had 3 assists. So shout out to him. But I mean, I think Bubba played very well. I think that,
dude, Bubba had a great weekend.
Great weekend.
Just and for all the haters out there, of which there are one, just what a way to close out that career at Maryland. I mean, that semifinal, like that block shot that he had in that semifinal game, where I mean he was an inch away from just getting his skull completely ripped off of his body. I mean, so that block shot he had a goal. He had a goal in that Princeton game, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes.
And then just a few just like incredible, just getting up and down the field in transition. Some caused turnovers, getting the ball up on the first go around. Like he was, and obviously he was hurting a little bit too. Like, you saw him on the sideline getting the massage gun to the calf. But the parts of the game where he wasn't like physically falling apart was just a monster.
And he had a great weekend. McNaney had a phenomenal weekend. I mean, both games came into it. And I said, you just have to throw shots at him and just challenge him. I said, there's not too many games. You're going to have 2 games with 19 plus saves. He didn't have 19 saves today, but he had 17, which isn't too bad in the business. So, I mean, he kind of, as somebody who I was never fully on McNaney, he had a great weekend. I mean, he saw more shots this weekend than he's probably seen realistically all year. So
yeah,
he stepped up when they needed him to the most, because like that fourth quarter, like it really was starting to cave in on Maryland. Like, when you start letting a team believe that they're in the game, like that, there was also some bad shot selection. I mean, right at his stick. I mean, if you want to make a comeback happen, stop shooting it at his stick. Like, they didn't make him work in the fourth quarter for those saves at all.
Yeah, and that's the thing about McNaney, which is it's tough to like buy into him as a great goalie, because the shots that Maryland defense gives up, like none of them are like that high of danger shots. So like you're never seeing McNaney really have to like make this like miraculous save, right? Like all of his are going to be coming from, some like he's going to be able to see the ball pretty well with the shots that D in front of him is giving up. In that fourth quarter, Cornell was getting to some dangerous spots. They were pushing the ball and they were getting to where they wanted to go. But yeah, I mean, like a few really like killer saves from McNaney, but also he had 17 on the day. What do you think? Like 13 of those were probably just popcorn right into a stick.
Yeah. And look, you'll take them however you can.
Oh yeah. Like, I mean, that's
good positioning. We're gonna discredit good positioning now.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that that's on McNaney. I'm saying that that's on Cornell for being like, guys, like maybe you probably could have shot anywhere else.
Yeah, and if we really want to talk about it, the Piatelli was completely a goal.
What? No.
So? Yes.
The dive?
Yeah.
No, he was in the crease before the ball went in.
No.
Yes, he was. Did you not watch that replay?
I watched it like 3 times.
He goes diving through, takes the shot. It hits off the pipe. It hits off of McNaney's back. As it's hitting McNaney's back, he lands in the crease, and then it trickles in.
Okay. I thought it just had to release his stick, get out of his stick before he was in the crease.
No, it's got to go in.
Okay.
As yeah, as the Crease Dive podcast, we gotta tighten up on those rules though.
I've never been a rules guy. I was always just trying to find a way to break the rules. But I mean, who is Petrakis on Cornell? The faceoff guy had a day and a half, I thought. I mean,
yeah,
not like a day and a half, but kept Weirman below 70%, which is really,
Speaking of the
13-7. So like kind of slowed Weirman down. They got some big face-off wins at the end.
Speaking of the face-off guys, I love that Weirman took that first shot of the game, opening draw, wins it to himself, takes it down. Cause like in his mind every night before he went to bed since last Memorial Day, he was thinking about that last shot he took against Virginia, and all he wanted to do was avenge it. It didn't work out for him. He's not much of a shooter, but I'm glad that he probably had it. He's probably been thinking about winning the opening face-off for a national championship game and going down and taking that shot for the last 364 days. And I'm glad that he at least attempted it.
And I thought that we had potential. I thought there was potential for the end of the game for Maryland to lose on a face-off draw down the middle.
Oh my God.
I kept thinking.
Imagine.
I kept thinking about that, to be honest.
But yeah, so I mean, a 9-7 win for Maryland, huge win for John Tillman as far as a legacy goes. A great start to the Connor Busick era in Cornell. I don't think that this will be the last time that we see Cornell in the Final Four under Busick. And I think like that just one, they ran into, the best team and at least like, all right, so wherever you want to rank this Maryland team in terms of the greatest ever, at the very least, they're the best team in the past like decade plus. So like Cornell ran into an absolute buzzsaw. But also like this is a program that needs to learn how to win these games. So I think that that's it's a bad loss, but I think that that's one of those losses where like you'll see a lot of the same Cornell group back in Final Four weekend because they learned from this loss to then get them there the next go around.
Yeah. I mean, it is also, I was just kind of like thinking to myself, when you see like CJ Curse and Connor Busick, it's like crazy because there's like Busick, such a young, bright-minded coach. Curse is a young, like promising attackman. And that could be the last time we see them in the Final Four too. You know what I'm saying? Like you think that like to some extent, like, wow, like, you're so young, you have this like bright future ahead, which they do, but it is like so hard to get there that I was just thinking like, it is kind of crazy that like in this business, like you're not really promised another like return to championship weekend. Like just because you're talented and a freshman or like just talented and a bright coach. But I think that Busick will be back, but I hope Cornell can punch through eventually, like to the next level. Who what I was gonna say is we keep getting tweeted at by this guy, Coach Don. Have you seen this?
I have not, but go ahead and lay it on me.
He predicted that Tucker Dordevic would transfer from Syracuse. He then called a day like 2 weeks before anybody else that Tucker Dordevic was going to go to Georgetown. And then yesterday he tweeted about Maryland. And this is what he said. Hearing the Terps didn't deal with the heat well yesterday, 10 plus guys got IV fluids after the game. Going to be 90 tomorrow, ... And then in the fourth quarter, they looked like they couldn't deal with the heat. They looked like they were fatigued a little bit. I mean, I don't know who this Coach Don is.
Coach Don's plugged in right now.
I'll tell you what, a lot of people talk about how connected they are into the lacrosse world. And a lot of people are talking a bunch of bullshit. But Coach John, I would trust this guy with my life. I'm not kidding. I trust his sources more than Ty Zanders, more than like you can name anybody in the lacrosse. I'll take Coach John over them.
I need to know who Coach Don is, but also I love the intrigue of not knowing who he is.
It's definitely someone who used to play.
Oh yeah, it's got to be. I mean, like, and we heard even like leading up to the weekend, like how Maryland's sick and tired of having to play that second game on Saturday. So it's like you knew that was going to take a physical toll on them. But like, I mean, they literally hit a wall in that fourth quarter. So, I mean, luckily they were able to just build themselves up a nice little lead to just let them barely hang on there at the end. Another first quarter hat trick for this offense. I think I saw Dan Arestia tweet out a stat like it was like the 12th game this year where someone had a hat trick in the first quarter. So Anthony DeMeo had his 3 in the first quarter. A couple goals out of group. That low to high stinger was sick. A pole goal. So yeah, I mean, luckily they were able to build up that lead. They held on, and yeah, now they are national champs, and they'll forever go down in the conversation as one of the greatest of all time, whether they're top 5, top 3, top 1, wherever you want to put them, they're in that conversation.
Where are you putting them? Who do you think can challenge them?
Like I think 06 Virginia and 90 Hughes, I think are like the two where
14 Duke.
Okay, so
That's
like
what Evan Malloy said.
So are we saying like as far like roll out the ball and like let these teams play against each other, like who wins, or are we saying like their body of work?
I think that every aspect of Maryland is better than every aspect of Duke, lining them up no matter how you want to. Like roll it out, sure. Like season, yep. Like everything.
Okay, so like would Jordan Wolf be the best player on the field in that game of 14 Duke versus 22 Maryland? I would say yes, but I would say that Maryland was a much better team than that Duke team.
Yeah, like I think face off goes in favor of Maryland. Defense goes in favor of Maryland. Goaltending goes in favor of Maryland. Like midfielders for sure in favor of Maryland. Defensive midfielders, Maryland.
I think I just think that
maybe you go attack. Maybe you could say the attack Duke was better because of Jordan Wolf.
I wouldn't even say the whole attack. I would just say that Jordan Wolf was better.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to give Duke a bone, and it's not even a full bone.
No,
I'm just saying I don't think it's even close.
Has I haven't heard anyone ever put like that Duke team in the greatest of all time conversation.
They didn't. I feel like they did. So here's where I'll stick up for Duke in this conversation. When you're not,
they went back and they went back to back, which is
when you're not undefeated in lacrosse, it's hard for anybody to ever say like that they're the greatest team of all time. But again, could 2014 Duke beat 1990 Syracuse? I'd say yes. Like, could 2014 Duke beat 06 Virginia? I'd say yes again.
Yeah. I mean, like, all right. So yeah, like if you're playing with like your equipment and your speed and like this and that, if you're taking all that like into consideration and saying like where they were at in their game versus where they were at in their game, like then it gets a little dicey.
It gets dicey, but like, I don't know. It's just one of those things where like Jordan Wolf would make Pat McCabe look silly at X, I think.
I think so, but also like, I don't know. Like I would love to see like a 1990 Gary and Paul Gate go up against one of these defensemen in today's game, or even give me a defenseman in 2014. Like I think that they make them look like just as foolish as they made anyone in the 90s look.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But so then like you also have to imagine, okay, like if like those guys were able to hang, like if anyone was able to at least contain the Gates, then they'd probably figure out a way to contain some of these guys. I don't know. Either way, it's definitely a conversation. It's a conversation that at the end of the day doesn't really mean a flying fuck. It's just people's opinions, and those are the best conversations to have, because you can just argue until the cows come home, and then no one's gonna agree with you if no one's gonna change their opinion. So that's what makes those arguments the best. Everyone just gets to be stubborn. They plant their foot in the sand, and then they say, no, you're an idiot. They played against plumbers. All right. So yeah. So congrats to Maryland on capping off their perfect season. Congrats to Tampa also on capping off a perfect season in the D2 national championship game. They take down Mercy 11-7. They were also just speed bagging teams all year long. So Tampa, they get it done in the D2 game, and then RIT, they go back to back. And as the D3 national champions, they only had one loss on the year. It was a 1-goal loss to RPI. So, between D1, D2, and D3, there was one loss, and it was 1-goal loss. And anything on those two games or those two programs?
Not much. Congrats to Tampa for breaking through. I think it was first D2 title, so you could see that being first of many.
Dude, it's got to be so easy to get kids. Like Tampa brings in like 50 kids a year. Like they've got like, I feel like they have like 2 like JV teams full of kids who just can't crack, who get recruited there, and then they show up and it's like, oh yeah, like we brought like 30 other kids, and there's also a couple D1 bounce backs that come in, like have fun playing JV like for 4 years, and then they're like, you know what, actually, yeah, I will have fun. I'm living in Tampa. The weather's sick. I get to play fun lacrosse. So yeah, I mean Tampa has the makings there of just being an elite dynasty, because it's got to be so easy to get kids to go there.
It has to be. I mean, all you're dealing with is just they're like in Lemoyne, like where else? Limestone is down south. So
yeah, and then I mean, as far as RIT goes, it's just, hey, are you Canadian? Okay, have like here's a jersey.
Yeah.
So although RIT, they did have a tight one, and by a tight one, I mean a 6-goal win against Ursinus earlier in the season. So Ursinus is just 6 goals off pace to become D3 national champs. In the women's game too, North Carolina capping off their undefeated season. A lot of people say it's hard to beat the same team 3 times, but that's exactly what UNC did on Sunday as they played BC for the 3rd time of the year. Much closer than the last go around, where they beat them up pretty well in the ACC tournament, 16-9. But this was another 1-goal win, 12-11. Thought Charlotte North was going to be able to pull off another miraculous comeback, but it was just a little too late. So Jamie Ortega, Sam Geyersbach, and the Lady Tar Heels, they get their what was it? That had to have been their first national championship in quite a few years, right?
I'll fact check it really quick.
Did they do it in 26, the same year as the men?
I feel like they might have. It was either them or Maryland.
I think we already talked about this on a previous episode. I think it was 16 and 17, like UNC, and then Maryland.
Yeah, so 2016 Maryland, UNC won.
Yeah, but either way, this was a long time coming for this UNC team, who had been to the Final Four so many previous years and weren't able to get it done. So good for the UNC women. Tough way for Charlotte North to go out. Obviously we're Ocho stands over here, but that was another great game to cap off a great weekend in the ladies tournament.
Yeah, I mean, overall, the women's tournament kicked ass. Did Charlotte North, great career. She's gonna do so much for the women's game. The crowd at Homewood was very, very cool to see. But yeah, two undefeated teams, UNC and Maryland, to close off the year. It kind of sucks that we won't be able to see Ortega versus Charlotte again, because I feel like those games were must watch this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess they'll probably play against each other in the
Athletes
United or Athletes Unlimited.
Fuck.
I think it's one of those. It's an AU. AU is the league. But yeah, so I mean, just I'll go ahead. I'll call it a great weekend of lacrosse. I don't know if Saturday was necessarily great for the men's game, but Sunday altogether was great. And then Monday was really a really good 4th quarter. I'll go ahead. I'll call it a really good weekend for lacrosse.
I'll go ahead and call it a really good weekend for women's lacrosse.
I can live with that. All All right. Well, yeah. And anything else to close out this season? I know that we'll be, we'll be coming right back around later on this week for our PLL Week 1 preview show. So it's not like we'll be going anywhere for any extended period of time. But any closing remarks on the college lacrosse season?
Look, again, not an excuse, guy. It's definitely a little fishy that Notre Dame wasn't in the tournament. I think everybody knows that Maryland got lucky. I think that everybody knows that Maryland got lucky that they didn't have to face Notre Dame for a second time this season. I think that everybody knows that Maryland would have lost to Notre Dame if they played in the tournament. But look, it's one of those hypotheticals that we'll never know.
I do think the one thing that will make this like a really great weekend for college lacrosse is the fact like you do have to go back and just retool the selection process for the tournament. So even all things considered, like I think that this year will be good for college lacrosse because we realize that asshole Donna can't have all the power in the world, and we need to figure out a way to actually make a tournament that makes sense. So all good things will come out of this one.
Yeah. All seriousness, congrats to Maryland. They went undefeated. They had to play who they had to play. And yeah, I totally agree with what you said. It's the one shining spot of this whole, it wasn't the most exciting tournament in my opinion, but it definitely will help for future. Cause I think that everybody was kind of on the same page that at least one school got fucked.
Yep. All right, cool. Well, yeah, so we will be getting now ready, turning the corner over into the PLL season. If you're going to be at the games in Albany this weekend, make sure you let Dukes know. He'll also be, he'll be making the trip over to Albany for that one. Make sure that you are subscribed to us on YouTube or the Crease Dive there. We are also at the Crease Dive on Twitter and Instagram. And in the meantime, we'll be keeping it low to high to the day we die. We out.